Long back with another reaction. Y'all see the title, man. Let's get to it.
The last time the Detroit Pistons won a playoff game, Barack Obama wasn't yet elected president. And the most high-tech phone on the market was the original first-generation iPhone. Since then, Detroit lost more games than any other NBA franchise. And they are currently on pace to have the second-worst five-season stretch in NBA history. To top things off, the Pistons have now lost 28 games in a row and counting, which is an NBA record.
It was just 27.
Could easily become the worst single-season team of all time. But how is this possible?
I just feel bad for the city of Detroit, for the state of Michigan.
How can a team hire the highest-paid coach in NBA history, have 9 players on the roster selected in the lottery, including 5 top 5 picks in the last 6 NBA drafts, and still be this bad? The competition for the worst team in NBA history is steep. There are the 90s Dallas Mavericks, who sucked for an entire decade, then the process 76ers, who were trying to lose games on purpose, and the 2012 Bobcats, who only won 7 games in a season. But then there's the current basketball hell of the Detroit Pistons, who just might be the worst NBA team of all time.
Yeah, we're not 2-26 bad. You know what I mean? Like, no way.
I don't feel like they're that bad.
The 2023-20,
you know, on paper they don't look that bad. They got talent. They got good players. They got, you know, young talent and all that. It's just, I don't know. They're just not putting it together correctly. You know. They got no, like I saw in the last reaction, they got no shooters for real, except for Bogdanovich, and he's out right now. So the spacing is horrible, you know, and they're young players. They don't really got the experience out there. So you got them running a high pick and roll. They're not really too sure how to get buckets like that at an efficient rate, you know. I feel like it can come together though, you know. That's what I'm basically trying to get to. I feel like this team can come together if they make some trades, make the right moves. It might be a whole turnaround, you know?
Four Pistons have 6 players averaging double figures in scoring. The Boston Celtics, who are at the top of the Eastern Conference, have 5, yet the Pistons still suck. The flaws of the Pistons are countless, so let's start at the top. The first culprit is the shooting. The 2024 Pistons rank last in three-pointers taken and dead last in three-point percentage. Cade Cunningham, the #1 pick in the 2021 draft and the player that Detroit was supposed to build a team around, will probably never be Luka Doncic. But his game heavily depends on the shooters around him, who are shooting 34% on open threes, by far the worst mark in the NBA. On paper, Cunningham could be the messiah that the Pistons have long been craving, but too often he falls into black holes on both ends of the court and has trouble reading the game and making the right decisions. But he could also be a perennial all-star if he only had the proper personnel around him. Cade is shooting a horrendous 31% for 3 in his career, which ranks 139th among 140 players with at least 500 attempts since he entered the league, ahead of only Russell Westbrook at 30.6%. But it's not his shooting mechanics that are the problem. It's the defense the opponents play against him, knowing that there's almost nobody who could punish them if they play him tight. Cade shoots 40% on open threes, and that's not ideal, but it's not bad either. The biggest problem is that opponents don't have to cover a series of shooters, so they can help from all sides without fear of being penalized. Doncic is the only player in the NBA who sees more blitzes in the pick and roll than Cade. But since Detroit often plays with 3 or 4 non-shooters, they can't score when Cunningham gives the ball away. The prime example of that was the record-breaking 27th consecutive loss against the Nets.
27 consecutive games. That is the longest streak in a single season in NBA history.
Cunningham scored 42 points, which was the 10th game in his career where he scored at least 30, but all 10 were losses, and no other player in history has had such a streak to open a career. And a lot of those issues have to do with the rotations of Monty Williams. Monty, who helped the Suns get to the NBA Finals and won 2022 Coach of the Year, is now the subject of mockery around the league. Williams himself said his primary motivation for coming to Detroit was money, when the Pistons owner Tom Gores coughed up $78 million over 6 years for his services. But why is Coach Williams constantly playing with 2 big men, one of whom often can't close out rebounds? Why do his rotations?
So he's still doing that 2 big man lineup and it's not working? Like, I thought he would just try it and then, okay, it's not working, let me try something else, you know? That's what I was saying in the last reaction for those of you who did not see it. But yeah, that's nasty. I heard in the last reaction they didn't even want. I mean, on Monty Williams did not want to go to Detroit. He denied the offer many times until they offered him that $78 million. You're like, oh shit, oh shit, and $100 million in incentives. He getting paid like a player out there. You know what I'm saying? So he on the bullshit. He ain't tripping, basically. He getting his money on.
Create mismatches for other teams. Furthermore, why don't the Pistons have a hierarchy in the team even after 30 games played this season? Why do the Pistons' most commonly used five-man lineup play 100 minutes in total, while other teams have double or triple that amount? And why does Monty's most common five-man lineup have 4 non-shooters? And why is it led by Killian Hayes with a net rating of minus 10.1? Hayes is the NBA's worst shooter since he entered the league. And Osar Thompson, despite all his defensive and rebounding strengths, has connected on just 14% of his three-point attempts. Isaiah Stewart is another example of a player every coach would want in the lineup. Beef Stew isn't just any guy who does the dirty work. He's the guy who likes to do the dirty work. He likes to set picks, set rebounds for others, wrestle under the hoop, and run transition in both directions. But with the Pistons, he's too often forced to play outside the paint since no one else can hit the three-pointer, which pushes him out of positions where he can grab the offensive rebound and provide easy points. Just 2 seasons ago, Stewart had over 3 offensive rebounds per game, despite playing less than 25 minutes per game. This season, he is 1.8, although he plays 5 more minutes. And this can easily be explained to him playing out of position, like everyone else on this team. Within this roster, there is no winning philosophy, no system, and no sense. But why are the Pistons this bad? Because they still shouldn't be this bad. Some of the blame belongs to Monty, but the rest belongs to general manager Troy Weaver. Weaver became the Pistons GM in 2020, after which he selected Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, and Osar Thompson. On paper, all those picks made sense in a vacuum, but since neither of them can hit an open shot, the big question arises, did Troy Weaver even watch NBA basketball in the last 10 years? In the era of pace and space and the omnipresent value of a three-point shot, Weaver has constantly gone for guards without a shot, who can't possibly coexist together. We won't even mention that he could have drafted Tyrese Halliburton over Killian Hayes, since most GMs passed on Hallie, or that he selected Ivy over Shaedon Sharpe, Benedict Mathurin, or Jalen Williams. And to be fair to Monty and Weaver, their vision was somewhat obstructed with injuries. Cade missed almost all of the 2023 season, and at the beginning of 2024, they missed their only true shooter in Bojan Bogdanovic. And even when he came back, they lost their only true great big man in Jalen Duren. Weaver tried to gamble by bringing in Marvin Bagley and James Wiseman, the second picks of the 2018.
I feel like that's a big piece right there. I was seeing a lot about Jalen Duren. You know what I'm saying? Until he got injured. You know, I feel like that's a big piece they're missing. Same with Bogdanovic. You know.
20 NBA draft.
I feel like they got to start from the ground up. You know, if they want to rebuild this thing, they got to start from within. New coach, new owner, new everything. You know what I'm saying?
Them continue to display mediocre performances and will probably become busts who shouldn't have been traded for in the first place. Regardless, you can't build a modern NBA roster without shooters, and that's precisely the biggest flaw of the 2024 Pistons. Out of their 28 straight losses, 14 came in the clutch time, which not only makes them the worst clutch team this season, but the worst clutch team of all time. The 2024 Pistons are shooting 20% from the field and 15% from 3 in the last 5 minutes of a close game, which is almost twice as bad as the 2008 Heat, who shot 31% in the clutch and currently hold the record as the worst late-game shooters ever. However, with 9 lottery picks on the roster, 5 of which were selected top 5 since 2018, the Pistons shouldn't be as bad as they are. And this wouldn't be such a flagrant foul if their losing streak was some kind of first-year rebuild, which is the biggest crime of them all. See, Detroit is in the middle of a second-worst 5-season stretch in NBA history, worse than the process 76ers or the 2010 Bobcats. They are currently on a stretch of 5 losing seasons with an average win record of just 19 games per season, which is only better than the 1996-2000 Vancouver Grizzlies, who had just become an NBA franchise in 1996 and weren't meant to win win any games. But unlike any of those teams who were designed to lose, the Pistons' draft assets are bleak at best. They don't own their 2024 first-round draft pick and don't have future draft picks to trade like OKC, for example, which makes this season even more.
Wow. With that being said, I don't know if they could recoup from this anytime soon, man. I was saying that I feel like maybe they could recoup, rebuild this team, rebuild this whole organization into something that is striving, you know. But with that information, it's not looking too good, you know. We got your draft picks for the next few years, you know. That's not good. It's not good.
Catastrophic. Even if they end up with the worst regular season in NBA history, which they are currently on pace to achieve, the Detroit Pistons won't even receive the top draft pick in compensation, which basically makes them the most stupid NBA team of all time. Their partnership with Wingstop suddenly looks like the best deal ever, because Wingstop partnered with the Pistons in October, offering 5 free boneless chicken wings with any online order after every game the team won. But Detroit hasn't won since October 28th, with a streak of 28 consecutive defeats and counting, which leaves the Pistons fans hungry and frustrated.
Why should anybody keep their jobs on the worst team in NBA history?
Since the era of Chauncey Billups ended in 2008, Detroit had only 1 winning season and 3 playoff appearances that ended with a clean sweep, which makes them by far the worst franchise in the NBA. Even the Sacramento Kings, who had the longest playoff drought in American sports history, have managed to win a playoff game since 2008. So, without draft assets and with a historically bad team, the Pistons are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They should be able to trade the only 2 vets on their roster, Bogdanovich and Burks, which will leave their youth with no experienced players to lead the way. With Cade Cunningham at the helm, whose career player efficiency rating is just 12.7, the future doesn't seem very bright for Detroit, because only 7 other number 1 picks in the lottery era have had a PER below 15 in their first 3 seasons, and almost all of them are all-time busts. It's hard to argue who is the main